Hello, subscribers! You are watching the last episode in a 9-part series where I rate every anime I've ever seen, with a few caveats that I mentioned in the first episode. And this video is just a grab bag of what's left, because I couldn't fit these animes in any other specific kind of list that I had going. Let's get to it. First up for this video, we have Psycho Pass. Psycho Pass is very similar to Minority Report, except instead of computers using psychic powers to predict the future, Psycho Pass uses advanced psychology to determine whether a person is gonna be guilty of a crime. And all that psychological data is fed into the special guns the rare human police officers carry. Because with this new devotion to psychology, there are not enough criminals to justify having an actual police force. And they have advanced robots and stuff to do it for you. I might be saying that wrong. I should say that the technology is so advanced that the level of accuracy for the psychology detection stuff that human officers are mostly irrelevant, and computers can actually do most of the police work. But real human police officers are not completely obsolete, and this group of officers has guns that connect directly to the main software that scans and records the psychology of their person to give them a crime coefficient, which automatically tells their gun what kind of force is necessary. If their crime coefficient is 0, nothing happens. The gun will not fire. At a higher coefficient, I'm not sure what the threshold is, but it will then kill the person with extreme prejudice. And the main drive to the story comes in the villain, who is basically a psychopath, or at least he's immune to the psychology reading of the guns, so he always comes up as 0, even if he's actually in the process of killing someone. And because these special guns are the only guns that the officers are allowed to use, this creates a lot of conflict, as their lives are run by the computer, and if they go against the computer, their crime coefficient will go up, meaning they can be executed. But some people find a way around this, which leads me to my first big complaint about the show. In one scene, someone gets beaten to death in public, and nobody does anything. It's understandable that the computer can't do anything, because the computer cannot recognize action. It only recognizes psychology. So all it knows is that the person being beaten up is in great distress. But it makes 0 sense for all the bystanders to just sit back and watch it and be dumbfounded. I don't care that they grew up in this world where the psychology rules everything. If you see someone getting beaten on the street, you are gonna react. You're gonna know what's going on. My next big complaint is that it basically ends the same way it began, with the main character. Well, when it began, the main character was late for work in the rain, and she's getting thrown into the thick of it right off the bat. And that's exactly how it ends, where she's now in charge, and the new person who's basically replacing her, it's basically a carbon copy of that scene. And you don't need to carbon copy the scene in order to have the effect that everything's just repeating. Now, I give Psycho Pass 2 stars, but even though it's 2 stars, I still won't spoil it. There are spoilers. There are mysteries, but I'm not gonna spoil any of that. As far as 2 stars goes, it's not terrible, but I really don't have much interest in watching the second season. Where Psycho Pass was a very serious drama, Kill la Kill is not at all. Kill la Kill is about sentient clothing that tries to take over the world, and the main heroine uses a giant pair of scissors to defeat them, and some living clothing of her own. Living clothing which, when transformed, does not leave much to the imagination. Kill la Kill is not appropriate for younger audiences, even though the humor that it has seems kind of geared for younger audiences. It's very silly, and yet at the same time tries to have a serious story. Kill la Kill gets 2 stars. I would not recommend it. It's pretty stupid and way over-sexualized. Ixer 1 may have possibly been the first anime I've ever seen. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what anime was my first, but Ixer 1 is pretty close. So I had quite a bit of nostalgia for it until I tried watching it again, and it does not age well. It is very dated in its animation and voice acting. I think the main character's name is Nausicaa? I'm gonna say Nausicaa. I think that's close enough if I'm wrong. She is a whiny crybaby in Ixer 1, and you will just hate her. And at the end of it, she asked Ixer 1 why she chose her, and Ixer 1 says, "Because I love you." Do I need to explain why that is so stupid? Probably, since I didn't explain the anime itself, and I'm not really gonna. It's not that easy. But Ixer 1 never met Nausicaa right before choosing her. Also, there is a small bit of nudity in it, and let's move on to the next one, Ixer Leon, which is a big improvement on the Ixer series. Nausicaa's in it again as the main character, but this is a completely different Nausicaa who is not a whiny crybaby and actually likes to wrestle, and the animation might be better too. It might be a better anime than Ixer 1, but it's still not that great, and it's not even complete. It's only a few episodes long or it's a movie, and they never actually finish. Ixer 1 and Ixer Leon together both get 2 stars. Or is it 1 star? I forget. Yeah, I gave it 1 star, especially for Ixer 1. Ixer Leon, maybe 2 stars, but it's incomplete, so it's almost not worth watching. The only thing worth the trouble for Ixer Leon is the song Dancing Dolls, which you should have been able to hear in the background right now. Next is Transformars, and I could not find a picture of it, so here's a picture of a cockroach. Whenever I tried to look for Transformars, the internet just sent me pictures of Transformers. Transformars is about the attempt to terraform Mars, and in the process of terraforming Mars, they sent ahead cockroaches for some reason I forget. But then these cockroaches evolved into bipedal cockroaches the size of people, or bigger, and became a serious threat. So Earth sent a team of bioengineered people who had the different traits of other bugs grafted into them. So the fight for Mars begins, and there's a lot of death on both sides. And I'm pretty sure there is a second season, but I never watched it. I'm just not that interested. Transformers gets 2 stars. Claymore is set in a world where demons are defeated by certain group of people who then take the demons into their own body to give them the power of the demons. I don't think they call them demons. I think they call them something else, but basically demons. And they specifically stopped putting the demons in men because men were too strong. So all the people who have demons in them are all women. And I forget the actual term they used for them was, but I'm pretty sure it was not Claymore. And our main heroine, instead of taking a demon into her own body, took her previous master, someone who also was one of these white knights. That is definitely not what they were called at all. Anyway, she took her head into her own body, and that person just so happened to be the most powerful, but the main character is not. She kinda sucks compared to the person whose power she took, but she gets stronger over the series and eventually wins the day, and it's left open to a second season, but I don't think a second season was ever made. Claymore gets 2.5 stars. It's almost decent, but it misses something. And it's been a while since I've seen it. Maybe if I had been doing this video fresh off of watching it, I could have given more detail. It might have had something to do with toxic feminism. That's certainly a possibility with this anime. Or it could be that she just wasn't that likable of a main character. Or maybe I just wanted her to be smarter. I don't know, but I'm sticking with 2.5 stars. Blood-C is one of those animes that I discovered by watching a Watch Mojo top 10 list. In this particular top 10 list, it was most overkill in an anime. It was specifically talking about the bunny scene, and it was surprisingly hard to find just a normal picture of this scene that wasn't a GIF going into gruesome detail that I did not want to show, and I certainly did not want to edit or censor. Blood-C gets 2 stars, but my main problem with it is that when I went into it, I had no idea that it was a continuation of a completely different series. There is a whole Blood series. I had no idea Blood-C was maybe the 3rd or 2nd in the series. I have no idea. I've not watched any of the others, and I didn't even realize it until the end. If I had realized it much sooner, I probably would have stopped watching it much sooner, as I do not like watching sequels before the main. But what I did see did not really interest me to watch the entire Blood series. But even if I wanted to, I have no idea where I would start, because it's not labeled Blood A, Blood B, Blood C. At least then I would know what direction they're going in. But moving on to Zoids. Zoids probably could have gone in my list of animes that I've forgotten, mostly based on what I'm actually gonna say right now, because I don't know what I'm gonna say, but I do remember more than the details I'm actually capable of giving. Zoids was okay. It was something to watch. It is 2 stars. Handmaid May is, I think, only about 12 episodes long, so I should easily be able to finish it if I ever felt like it. I just don't. Handmaid May is about a boy who is a programmer or roboticist or whatever in the making, and somehow he accidentally orders a tiny little robot maid from some mysterious company. So hijinks ensue as he tries to dodge the people trying to collect the bill for her, which, as you might imagine, is very expensive. And she's trying to do all this big person stuff while she's only 2 inches tall. If this had been a love story between the two of them, this might have been interesting to me. But without that, it's just boring. While I was looking at pictures online, I was getting some conflicting information, so I do actually want to finish the anime just to see if those pictures were real and what's up with them. Handmaid May gets 2 stars. It may be boring, but it's not awful, and there's only 12 episodes anyway. A Certain Magical Index. This one annoyed me. First, this picture annoys me, because there is something wrong with him. His proportions are not right. He looks way too skinny, and his head seems normal size, while his body just seems smaller. And if you didn't see that before, now you can't unsee it. He does not look that disproportioned in the anime. So, in a world where everybody seems to be psychic, or a lot of people are psychic, I don't know, large amount of people are psychic, he has a unique ability with, I think, his right arm, where his right arm can nullify any psychic or magic power. And he meets this person who's on the run from the church. And this brings me right into one of my biggest problems with this anime, is that it separates religion with magic on one side and science with psychic powers on the other side, which naturally is dumb. But it gets even more dumb at the end when one of the characters, not shown here, is talking to some head cleric or bishop or whatever, and he's describing something and says that he just described an angel. I really don't want to go looking for the scene just to show how stupid and wrong that is, as if angels were subject to science, basically, which they are not. They are spirit. My third problem is that this guy gets amnesia permanently. At some point, maybe halfway through the first season, he gets hit with a magic attack that just destroys the memories in his brain. Completely destroys, unable to fix. And then he just pretends that he has all his memories and doesn't tell anybody and tries to just figure everything out on his own. That is annoying. Just tell them you don't remember anything and move on with your life. The whole reason he decided not to tell anybody and to try and hide it was so he wouldn't hurt her feelings, even though he had no idea who she was. And that is not a good reason to hide amnesia. And I think my last complaint about it is that there's not really a main villain. In an anime where you have psychic powers and magic and the ultimate nullifier, you would think there'd be more threats, but none of the enemies really feel that threatening. They might be threatening to him, but not the world as a whole. Additionally, besides a certain magical index, there's also a certain scientific railgun and a certain scientific accelerator, neither of which I've watched. If I were to watch one of them, it would be Accelerator. I feel like that one might be the most interesting, but I'm sure it would have the same problem I just mentioned about no threats. And I still wouldn't want to watch them anyway, because before doing that, I'd want to watch a certain Magical Index Season 2, and I do not want to watch that. This anime sucks. 2 stars. And the last anime that I will cover is Parasyte. In Parasyte, a bunch of alien parasites fall on Earth and attach themselves to a bunch of humans, taking them over by eating their brains and just making their bodies their own. And they're able to shape the bodies in unique ways. But our main protagonist reacted quickly, preventing the parasite from reaching his brain, so it had to take over his hand instead. And now they work as a team to stop the other parasites for self-preservation reasons. It isn't a terrible anime, but what I do not like about it is, first of all, his hand has a face on it. I don't particularly like the asymmetry of it. Most anime protagonists who get a power, it's a power you might actually want. I do not want a face on my hand. And a certain unusual thing happens in this anime, but our main protagonist actually has sex with his love interest. Not this scene, but whenever that scene happens. They have a lovemaking scene, and it just feels so American. Even in other adult animes that are clearly not for children, like Basilisk or Berserk, the main character is still not actually making love to his love interest. In Death Note, you assume Kira made love to Mikasa, but they never actually show it. While we're on that, I should mention this anime does not have nudity, as far as I can remember. I do not know of a single anime out of all the animes I've seen where the main protagonist actually makes love on screen. And it's PG-13 lovemaking, but it's still there. And it just felt very unusual and American. And yes, I do say that is a negative for this anime. Parasyte gets 2 stars, but out of all the animes I've covered in this video, I would be most interested in a season 2 of Parasyte. To recap, Psycho-Pass gets 2 stars, Kill la Kill gets 2 stars, Ixer-1 gets 1 star, Ixer-Leon gets 2 stars, Transfer Mars gets 2 stars, Claymore gets 2.5 stars, Blood-Sea gets 2 stars, Zoids gets 2 stars, though that one could be 3 stars and I'm just not sure. Henry May gets 2 stars, A Certain Magical Index gets 2 stars, and Parasite, the maximum, gets 2 stars, though that's pretty close to a 3-star. And that is every anime I've ever seen, with some caveats, as far as I can remember. And now that this series is done, I can move on with my life and work on some other videos I've had planned. See you next time.